Approximately 2,000 students, community members, parents, teachers, and staff worked through the district-wide strategic planning process this past spring. All parties see a need for a change in our classrooms to meet the demanding needs of our society. At GISD, we want to create a graduate who is career and college ready, demonstrates mastery of content and 21st century competencies of communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. We believe project-based learning, or PBL, can help us accomplish this goal. PBL is a teaching method in which students engage in a collaborative, in-depth, extended study of an authentic topic that ends in a public product or presentation of their work. That's really an academic definition, though. It would be better to show an example and explain the essential elements that all good projects should have.
You remember what it was like in school. It was boring. You sat in class, memorized as much as you could, and tried to pass a test at the end. But is that good enough? These days, school can be more interesting and effective by focusing students on work that matters. This is project-based learning explained. Most adults live in a world of projects. Whether it's a job assignment, home improvement, or planning a wedding, we need to actively solve problems. But unfortunately, schoolwork looks more like this than this. Let's take a look at this project-based world. Meet Claire. She was recently presented with a challenge. Her company, Super Suds, makes soap, and it was up to her to find the most earth-friendly way to produce it in the future. Her boss gave her a budget and a few requirements, and it was up to her to come up with a solution. She organized and managed a team who researched the options and created materials summarizing the issues. Claire's team asked for feedback and presented their findings to the boss. Claire came out of the project looking like a rock star, and she learned a lot about green products. If you look closely, Claire's success involved critical thinking, collaboration, and communication, things that aren't often taught in traditional classrooms. The world needs more Claires, so how do we get them? The answer is project-based learning, or PBL. By focusing students on a project, teachers put them on a path that deepens their knowledge and builds skills they'll need in the future. Here's what I mean. Mr. Simmons has always been a good science teacher, and his students do well on Friday's tests. Unfortunately, what they learned was gone by Saturday morning. That wasn't good enough for him. Soon he learned about project-based learning and decided to give it a shot. Mr. Simmons got the idea for his first project on microorganisms when nearly half of his students were suddenly absent with the flu. He asked his students why they thought so many of their classmates got sick at the same time. That lively discussion produced a lot of good questions and a list of things the kids wanted to know. Mr. Simmons then announced their project was to help elementary school kids understand, how can we not get sick? After dividing the class into teams, he got them started on the project. It was up to the students to ask questions, research, collaborate, give each other feedback, and figure out the best ways to make their points clear to children. One team chose to make an educational video on the connection between hand washing and avoiding the flu. Another chose to create posters to show how viruses spread. The project teams showed off their final work to an enthusiastic audience of parents and their children at a nearby elementary school. Sitting in the front row was our good friend and local rock star Claire, who saw a bit of herself in the students. It was clear that the project was a success for the students, the audience, and Mr. Simmons. His students practiced critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. The project wasn't about memorization, but learning in depth about viruses and how to prevent spreading disease, a lesson they will never forget. At the end of the presentation, Claire introduced herself to the students and told them that they were rock stars and that the world needs more people who can think like them. To learn more about project-based learning, go to BIE.org.
PBL is sometimes confused with a hands-on activity or a lesson where students create something like a poster or model. This would be considered a dessert project that happens at the end of learning. We think PBL is the main course. Just like Mr. Simmons' students class, where the students learn by completing the project itself. He didn't teach all the content and then ask them to create a poster. He gave them a question to answer, and they learned through the process of asking more questions in order to create a project that served a real purpose for a public audience. We have partnered with the Buck Institute for Education to provide professional development for our teachers and our leaders to create rigorous, content-rich projects where the students learn through the completion of the project. These are the 8 essential elements of PBL, and notice that content and 21st century competencies are at the heart of every good project. All well-designed projects are focused on rigorous content. An instructional shift requires some planning and support. We have created a 3-year plan that ensures all teachers will be trained and implementing by the fall of 2015 and will be supported by their leaders. Our desire is to share student accomplishments with our parents and community. At the end of each year, the district will host an exhibition for our students to showcase their work through the PBL process. This summer, 70 teachers spent 3 days in a workshop designing a project they will be launching at the start of the school year. As a district, we are relying on these early adopters to help us engage in organizational learning that focuses on continuous improvement. Their classrooms will be open to the district so that we can learn how to best create and implement rigorous, relevant, and engaging projects in GISD. Let's listen to what kids and teachers are saying about PBL.
Here's briefly what they have shown. What was the most challenging part? Getting data, getting team to cooperate, not being shown at all how to build or given information how. And that leads to an interesting question. How many people in here agree with that sentiment? Max, what about you?
I mean, as you noticed, almost every single group until the last design did totally different things.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool because we got to see so many different designs. Instead of, if you had told us, we probably would have, half the class would have done something that you suggested, and the other half of the class would probably have done something that you sort of suggested.
All right.
I was going to say that it's a lot better to learn something on your own than it is to have a teacher tell you it.
Yeah.
Because if a teacher tells you it, you might remember it 2 weeks later, but if you learn it yourself, you're going to remember it for pretty much
You'll
the rest of your
remember how
life.
you learned it.
In terms of teamwork, in terms of data collection, in terms of excitement about learning, gosh, they exceeded all expectations.
Slow.
To have a student say, I want to do another, is a rare and wonderful thing.
You serve a crucial role in this process. We want PBL to be rooted in the community. When fully implemented, we hope that you as parents and community members will support our classroom by serving on a panel to critique final presentations, collaborate with the classroom teacher to deliver lessons, assist with final rounds of testing and provide feedback, assist in project planning processes, and provide insight into how science and engineering concepts are used in the field. For more information about project-based learning, you can go to BIE.org.